June 5th, 1967, 7:45 a.m. Israel delivers a stunning opening blow in the Six-Day War. Within a few hours, the Israeli airstrike has devastated the Egyptian Air Force. Fighting on 3 different fronts against the combined might of 3 Arab armies, Israel would win a war in the space of just 6 days. How did this tiny nation achieve one of the most astonishing victories in the history of warfare? Eyewitness testimony, unique access to secret military plans, and weapons testing reveal the extraordinary story of how Israel won the Six-Day War. In early June 1967, tensions in the Middle East were rising. Egyptian President Gamal Abdel Nasser had called on the Arab nations to destroy Israel. War seemed inevitable. Israel faced the grim prospect of a simultaneous invasion from Egypt, Syria, and Jordan. The combined Arab armies had a massive superiority in numbers of soldiers, tanks, and fighter aircraft.
Israel was viewed not only by themselves, but by the rest of the world as a scrappy little nation on the very edge of survival.
The general mood in the Arab world was that Israel is not that strong. It could be defeated.
Yet against most expectations, the opposite happened. In less than a week, Israel had defeated its Arab neighbors. How was such a stunning victory achieved? To understand the reasons for Israel's victory, it's necessary to go back to the early 1960s. At that time, Yoash Sedan was chief of planning in the IAF, the Israeli Air Force.
It was pretty obvious that not later than '68, they will eventually attack.
A military coalition between Egypt and Syria meant Israel would be facing battles on at least 2 fronts. It could expect attacks from Egypt through the Sinai Desert and by Syria from the Golan Heights. And it seemed possible that both Jordan and Iraq would add their weight to the Arab force.
Now, the question was, can you defend this kind of a sliver of the Mediterranean if they attack? The answer is no.
The best form of defense would be a strong offense, a preemptive strike. But such a strategy created its own problems.
The Israelis could not afford to put all of their oomph against the Egyptians and the Jordanians and the Syrians at the same time. They had to concentrate. The Israelis had to concentrate their force against one enemy at a time.
To fight a war the way it wanted, Israel would need to gain air superiority. Once the Arab air forces had been dealt with, Israel could fight each of their ground forces in turn. In 1964, Sedan's team came up with an unorthodox plan.
The idea that we came to was to strike their airstrips.
These classified plans have remained secret for 40 years. They reveal how Israel would achieve air superiority. The primary objective would be to keep the Arab air forces on the ground.
By disabling the runways of the Egyptian Air Force, and then the Syrian, etc., you prevent the aircraft from taking off.
Targeting the runways would take hundreds of Arab aircraft out of the equation. The plan was good, in theory. But what were its chances of success?
We had a problem there. They had tens of runways, more than 50. We had only 206 aircraft.
The problem they faced is a scenario the Israeli Air Force trains for to this day. How could the IAF keep enough of their aircraft in the air to destroy all their targets?
NATO used to consider 3 missions per aircraft per 24 hours the maximum that can be done.
But was this really the limit of what could be achieved?
A bright staff officer in the Israeli Air Force was running some numbers one day and realized that the Israeli Air Force could turn around an aircraft after a mission in 6 to 8 minutes.
Everything would depend on how fast the ground crews could work.
They did so many exercises and drills to reload and refuel the aircraft that it took them up till 7 minutes.
If the ground crew worked to the limit, each aircraft could fly up to 5 missions in one day. But for such an operation to succeed would still involve taking an incredible risk.
The Israeli Air Force has got to commit nearly 100% of available air assets. The Israeli Air Force can conduct almost no other tasks while they are destroying the Egyptian Air Force.
Just a handful of fighters would be left behind to protect Israeli territory. A big risk, but not a reckless gamble.
If the Israeli Air Force could achieve near absolute air supremacy, enabling almost complete freedom of action by the Israeli armed forces, then that's a big payoff.
In the mid-1960s, Yalo Shavit was one of the leading pilots in the IAF. He would train many of the pilots who would carry out this operation.
In the squadrons, we had the photographs of most of our targets. Each pilot had to learn and remember by heart the direction of their runways, the amount of runways, the control tower, the storage of bombs, all the targets in the base.
For more than 2 years, the Israelis practiced this operation, codenamed Moked, meaning focus. Ground crews competed with each other to see who could turn around a fighter fastest. Pilots bombed dummy air bases, modeled on the layout of the real targets, and were constantly tested on their ability to memorize every detail of their mission.
They had to concentrate in one target, and they knew it by heart. You wake them up in the middle of the night. They knew what target they are going to bomb.
Preparations for war on the Arab side progressed at a different pace.
The army was always used as a tool to maintain stability in the country and against political opponents. It was not really preparing